Hurricane Irma is on its way to Florida. It's already done considerable damage to people in a number of countries. The little island of Barbuda, I guess it is, or Barbuda. Yeah, it's like Bermuda without the R or something. But anyway, 1,200 people on the island. They just 90% of their buildings destroyed. I mean, this is serious damage that has happened. Thank you. And we're looking at dead, people who are dead. I mean, over 50 people now in Texas, and there's more to come. And the question, I think, really needs to be asked: who's going to pay for this? Who's responsible for this? There's not yet a consensus in the scientific community, but there are a number of scientists who are coming out and saying that probably, I mean, we've had hurricanes in this part of the world forever, at least as long as humans have been around. But they haven't been this strong. We haven't had mile-wide tornadoes in Oklahoma until the last decade or two. We haven't had these insanely strong storms. They are the clear consequence of the oceans being warmer and of the atmosphere being warmer and having more water vapor in it. This is the clear consequence of that. As air warms up, it holds more water. As water warms up, it evaporates more water. So you've got the oceans, which are warm, fueling the convection, the motion, the physical motion of air above them, which turns into hurricanes. And you've got warm water evaporating water moisture into the air more rapidly, which adds to the volume of water which falls when these hurricanes hit land, which was vividly on display with Hurricane Harvey in Houston. We see these things, right? This is not some mysterious process or something like that. It's right there in front of us, right there for us to look at. And if we don't start asking the question, where did this come from? How did this happen? What's going on? Why is it that so many people are dying? Why is it that these storms are so severe? And the answer comes right down to a very, very simple thing. And that is that the fossil fuel industry, which is known for years that their products do this to us. ExxonMobil learned this back in the 70s. The first scientist, the first credible scientist to talk about carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas that could warm the planet was in 1880. This is not, something that we just woke up to last week. And yet the fossil fuel industry has been actively sending money from their profits, from the poisons that they sell us and that they put into our atmosphere. They have been taking the profits from those poisons, and they have been using them to buy media, to buy public relations, to buy politicians, to send deceptive textbooks into schools, to hire climate deniers in colleges. They have used this to essentially create a situation that is killing us. 50 people are dead in Houston, and I'm guessing that there will probably be more as they start tearing apart some of these houses that have been literally underwater, where people who might have been trying to get to their roof and got as far as their attic got trapped and swamped, or people who were on dialysis machines or iron lungs or whatever in their homes, people who couldn't move, or people who simply didn't have the means. They were not wealthy enough to own a car. Public transportation had shut down. The buses weren't running. What are they going to do? There's going to be more and more of this. Mark Hertisgaard has a piece over at The Nation titled "Climate Denialism is Literally Killing Us." And he starts with the story of Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace is this 3-year-old child who survived the flood in Houston by clinging to the body of her dead mother. As her mother was dying, she was praying, save me, save my baby. She died. Her baby survived. At least 60 people in Texas have died because of the storm. Over 1 million are displaced. And who knows, Mark writes, how many survived but lost everything? Keep in mind, by the way, flood insurance, most flood insurance only pays around $30,000 in a full claim. I mean, full payout. Even those people with flood insurance are going to be wiped out. And this has happened to Texas. It's now about to happen to Florida. Yes, we routinely have these kind of things happen in the United States, but not like this, not at this level, not with this level of severity. 16 million children in Nepal and India and Bangladesh right now are homeless, and many of them without food or water. Pretty soon the cholera epidemics begin, the famine begins, and we're going to hear reports of millions of people dying. Keep in mind, the global warming is global. It's not just here in North America. It's all over the planet. And it is killing people as we speak. It is creating climate refugees as we speak. It is fueling wars as we speak. The whole Syrian conflict is a result of climate change. 1 million farmers in the north of Syria lost their farms as the desert moved south over the last 2 decades and claimed, thousands of square miles of fertile, arid land, turned it into desert. And what did those people do? There's 1 million plus Syrian farmers, small family farmers. What did they do? They had to go to the big cities and become beggars, basically, or take whatever job they could get. And that then and then at the same time, because the farms were shutting down, they were not growing wheat. The price of wheat went up, and the government had been subsidizing wheat. They had been subsidizing food to their people. And the Assad government, and Assad said, we can't afford this. And so he cut back the subsidies. Well, as soon as he cut back the subsidies, people said, hey, wait a minute. It's not my fault that I'm here. And they started protesting, and the first protests were met by Assad's soldiers shooting people, which was his first big mistake, or arguably his second big mistake. The first was cutting off the price supports for food. And that led directly to a civil war in Syria. It all started with climate change. You've got this massive destruction now down here. In 2000, this is an amazing little coda here that Mark Herdesgaard adds to his article in The Nation. He says, in 2008, John Podesta, soon to be Obama's transition director, organized a war game to test the responses to projected climate disruptions. Now, this is really interesting. This was 2008. That's, 9 years ago. John Podesta is running a war game to test the ability of the United States to deal with climate change-fueled climate violence. They used the best science available to predict where this would happen and where it would be the most destructive. And they came up with Houston. And in order to put it in a larger context, they figured while Houston was flooding, India should also be flooding. You got millions of refugees in India, 1 million people displaced in Houston. This was in 2008. This was their war game against climate change. Guess what? Just came true. Harvey dumped 27 trillion gallons of water. Seth Borenstein of the AP says that's enough to cover Manhattan a mile deep. Where did all that water come from? It came from evaporation. A lot of it came from evaporation out of the Atlantic. Why so much water? Because the atmosphere can hold more water, because of global warming, because the atmosphere is a degree warmer than it used to be, and because the ocean can evaporate much more moisture into the air than it used to because it's warmer. It's the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, 7 degrees warmer than they used to be. Meanwhile, the head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, has done away with President Obama's Clean Power Plan. Oh, yeah, it's just fine. Dump all the poison into the atmosphere you want. It doesn't matter if we pollute the planet. As long as the billionaires in the oil industry are richer, everything is good. Trump rescinded Obama's requirement that federal agencies take climate impacts into accounting when they're building major infrastructure. Because, hey, we don't need to be building bridges over rivers and and calculate into how high the bridge should be, what the flood level of the river might be under these new climate change realities, because we're pretending there's no such thing as climate change. You know, if Republicans really believe this stuff, if they really believe this crap, they should all go to South Florida right now. Because, you know, hey, climate science is a lie, right? It's these greedy scientists just coming up with stuff so that they can keep their jobs. So if climate science is a lie, don't believe what they're telling you about the weather. Oh, wait a minute. Rush Limbaugh already said that day before yesterday on his show. It's just a hype, right? This is just a hype. People are calling out Limbaugh right now saying, you know, really? You're going to get people killed. People are dying because of climate denialism. People are dying because these corporations, the politicians they own, and the right-wing media that they support and that has this bizarre symbiotic relationship with them are all committed to increasing the profits of ExxonMobil, Koch Industries, and the rest of the fossil fuel bunch. That's what's going on here. And as a result of this, people are dying. And then to really rub salt in the wounds, NASA, which collects the information on climate, NASA, which runs the satellites that are telling us, many of the satellites, not all of them, but they certainly put them there and get them back down again. NOAA runs some of them, but NASA is, you know, the big agency in charge of this stuff. Trump just appointed a guy to run NASA who's a climate denier and is not a scientist. He's just a right-wing hack. And Trump appointed him to run NASA. So, you know, it's time for us to start calling out these people. It's time to start calling out these institutions, to start calling out the TV and radio shows that are lying to us about climate change, to go to town halls and call out the politicians who are lying about us, to vote for people who acknowledge climate change, to promote legal investigations into company and sue companies. In fact, it's happening in 3 states now to ExxonMobil that have been lying to us.